There have been many controversial video games throughout the history of gaming. When you think of video game controversies, you think of titles like Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, Wolfenstein, Doom, Duke Nukem, Bully, Manhunt, and so on. Many of these games were condemned by politicians, the media, religious groups, and activists due to high levels of graphic violence, drug use, explicit language, and strong sexual content. These games were often accused of promoting and encouraging violence among the youth, sparking a conversation about strict regulations in gaming. Yet time after time, they have been debunked. In 1997, there was a video game series that would define the sandbox style of gameplay, which started as a 32-bit graphics that would evolve into 3D in 2001 and HD in 2008. This game series would give players a sense of freedom that resulted in cathartic chaos and destruction, where being a lawbreaker was valued over being a hero and defender of justice. Yet at the same time, this game series would spark controversy due to its violence, crass humor, strong sexual content, strong language, and drug use. The game was also known for its satirical take on American society and inspiring other sandbox-style games that will be successful yet ultimately fail with its latest game. This is the controversial history of Grand Theft Auto. The title of the game Grand Theft Auto is a reference to the felony involving the theft of motor vehicles. This series was created by David Jones and Mike Daly, and later games would be overseen by brothers Dan and Sam Houser, Leslie Benzies, and Aaron Garbett. It was developed by DMA Design, which is now known as Rockstar North, and published by its parent company, Rockstar Games, in 1997. The game first started out from a top-down 2D video game and evolved into a pioneering 3D open-world phenomenon later on. Before Grand Theft Auto, DMA Design was developing a game called Race and Chase, which was a cops and robbers concept of gameplay with an overhead top-down 2D video game in which players played as police officers chasing criminals. Unfortunately, the developers would realize that the game was dull and the concept of being a police officer was not going to please everyone. The game would also crash constantly, the cars were handled poorly, and most significantly, it was dull and boring. But then, opportunity knocked when developers discovered a glitch in the game where the higher the wanted level was, the more aggressive the cops would get in pursuing criminals. The developers would fall in love with the chaos and destruction that resulted in, and recreated a concept where driving at high speeds, performing stunt drives, carjacking, and running over pedestrians was valued over abiding by the rules of the road. What was originally a game of cops and robbers, it became robbers and cops. And so, what was called Race and Chase became the game we all know today as Grand Theft Auto. Despite being set in America, the game was supposed to be set in London, UK first. However, the game was in 32-bit graphics with a top-down perspective, and developers feared that it would not sell so well, especially since video games evolved from sprites and into 3D with games like Tomb Raider and Super Mario 64, which grew in popularity at the time. Although the first GTA game was sprite rendered, it would become quite popular. Originally released in Europe in 1997 on MS-DOS, PlayStation, and Windows, the game would reach American shores in 1998. The development team worked to ensure that players would have the freedom to play however they intended. Before the launching of this game, it sparked controversy due to its violent content, with discussions about banning its sale. The late English publicist Max Clifford exploited the stirring of controversy as free promotion. Despite the mixed reviews, the game was a commercial success. This game is made up of 6 levels split between the 3 main cities. Each locale is based on real-life cities in the United States with an alternative name. Liberty City, a stand-in for New York City. Vice City, a stand-in for Miami. And San Andreas, a stand-in for San Francisco. San Andreas in later games will be a state rather than a city and serves as a stand-in for California. Players can choose a character from among 8, 4 in the PlayStation version, and naming them, though the choice was purely aesthetic and will not affect the overall gameplay. Players can do whatever they want, but have limited lives upon doing so. They can gain points by causing death and destruction amid the traffic in the city, complete special challenges, or stealing and selling cars for profit. Jobs can be initiated by visiting and touching a ringing telephone box. With each set of jobs on offer being unique, the jobs can be completed in any order, and each of them has some level of freedom, though each location is fixed. Successful completion of a job awards the player points, unlocks more challenging missions with greater rewards, and provides a bonus that increases the value of points earned, known as a multiplier. Jobs can fail when players are killed, arrested, or failing to complete objectives. Losing lives can result in restarting a level, and death results in loss of weapons and body armor found across the level's map to help them with missions. Law enforcement is present at each level, and committing crimes will cause the players to raise their notoriety with the police. The higher the notoriety, the more aggressive the police can respond. The story of the game is where the main protagonist begins her career in Liberty City working for Robert "Bubby" Seragliano's gang. The more jobs completed for Bubby, the more hostile and aggressive rival gangs can get, as the protagonist is hitting their businesses and killing their soldiers and lieutenants. Upon leaving Liberty City, players arrive in San Andreas, where they work for Chinese triad boss Uncle Fu. They also do jobs for El Burro, and then they get sent to Vice City. However, a corrupt police officer named Samuel Deaver is on their tail to put them in prison for a long time and blackmails them into working for him. In terms of the music, players can listen to music while driving their cars around the city. Developers came up with the idea of several radio stations that will play music from various genres. The game's music was composed by Colin Anderson, Craig Connor, and Grant Middleton. The game received mixed reviews but was a commercial success. Graphics and controls were criticized, but the entertainment value, sound design, and freedom of gameplay were praised. The first GTA game had 2 expansions that took place in a real-world setting, 1960s England. The first expansion was London 1969, followed up by London 1961. Up until this day, this is the only GTA game that takes place in a real-world setting. Much like in the first game, players can do a number of jobs to earn points and also have a sense of freedom. What also made this expansion popular is how it perfectly captured the swinging era of the 1960s and the cars and British slangs. Whenever players get arrested by the cops, the British slang for getting arrested is nicked rather than busted.
Remember, I'm the monkey and you're the cheese grater, so no messing around.
The second installment in the Grand Theft Auto series was first released on PC and PlayStation on October 22, 1999. It would later be released for the Sega Dreamcast the following year. Reviews for this game were mixed, as the graphics were seen as plain and barely had any difference, yet the soundtrack was praised. Unlike the first game, players can only play as one character instead of choosing 1 out of 8 or 4 if you're playing the PS1 version. Much like its predecessor, the game gives players a sense of freedom to do as they please, and they can also do some jobs for crime bosses where points are awarded for successfully completing missions. Points are awarded for causing destruction and performing criminal actions. While committing crimes, they can attract the attention of law enforcement. The higher the notoriety, the more aggressive the cops can get, in which they can either arrest or kill the player. Hitting the businesses of rival gangs and killing their soldiers and lieutenants can increase hostility from rival gangs and respect from the organizations that players work for. Some features or improvements over the first game include allowing players to save the game during a level playthrough by visiting a church where they start, but must pay a number of points to do so. Other improvements over the first game include vehicles and pedestrians being more interactive with the game's environment, such as gang members engaging in fights with police, the presence of other criminals, a health meter, garages that can modify vehicles with special improvements, a selection of side missions ranging from running a taxi to driving a semi-truck, and groups of hidden packages to find across the level. The setting of Grand Theft Auto 2 is unique for the series. A retro-futuristic city called Anywhere USA, which is divided into 3 districts that players will switch between as they progress throughout the game. The time period the game is set in is not specified. Conflicting sources suggest anything from 3 weeks into the future. Grand Theft Auto 2 had a short film which served as an introductory sequence for the game and was made available on Rockstar's game's website. The film follows a criminal named Claude Speed, who conducts jobs around Anywhere City for several criminal syndicates until his actions eventually catch up and he is killed by an assassin from one of the gangs he robbed. The film was based on a screenplay by Dan Houser and directed by Alex de Rakoff. Despite the criticism of the gameplay and graphics, Grand Theft Auto 2 was considered an improvement over its predecessor. Then, under the guidance of the Housers, the series will go into 3D with the help of Aaron Garbett and Leslie Benzies. The success of the video game Driver would inspire developers to bring Grand Theft Auto 3 into the realm of 3D. Not wanting to let the gaming industry pass it by, Rockstar Games teamed up with Sony for the creation of Grand Theft Auto 3, released exclusively on the PlayStation 2. Heavily inspired by the success of the 1999 video game Driver and its sequel released the following year, Rockstar will bring the GTA series into 3D. Grand Theft Auto 3 was an entirely different animal to its predecessors, as the game featured a storyline with the themes of betrayal and revenge, while the others lacked a coherent storyline. This game was originally scheduled for a September release, but was pushed to October in the aftermath of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks in New York City and Washington, D.C. 9/11 would affect the game's release, in which the developers were forced to tone down some of the violence and remove any buildings that resembled the World Trade Center due to Liberty City being a stand-in for New York City. The story of the game begins with Claude and Catalina robbing a bank, but then the former is betrayed by his girlfriend and left for dead. On his way to prison, the police convoy he was in is attacked by members of the Colombian cartel who extract an unspecified character. Exploiting the situation, Claude and 8-Ball manage to escape as the Callahan Bridge is destroyed by a bomb. Claude then starts working for mob bosses in order to get his revenge on Catalina. Upon the game's release, Grand Theft Auto 3 was an absolute success. Players take the role of Claude, the silent main character of the game. Players can wield a variety of weapons and explosives and also engage in 2 forms of melee combat. While driving, when players have a micro Uzi, they can perform drive-by shootings against many criminals and civilians as well. Much like its predecessors, Grand Theft Auto 3 has wanted levels in which the law enforcement becomes more aggressive the higher it gets. However, when players have a 4-star wanted level, SWAT arrives. A 5-star wanted level calls the FBI, and when players have a 6-star wanted level, the National Guard is on their tail. Liberty City is expanded with 3 different boroughs: Portland, Staunton Island, and Shoreside Vale. Portland is the industrial area, Staunton Island is the metropolitan area, and Shoreside Vale is the suburban area. Grand Theft Auto 3 features comical radio stations that satirize American society and include music from the movie Scarface. It has also voice acting, which includes famous names such as Joe Pantoliano, the late Michael Madsen, the late Robert Loggia, the late Frank Vincent, Michael Rappaport, Debbie Mazar, and so on. Media that inspired this game were hit movies and shows like The Godfather, Goodfellas, and The Sopranos. Despite its popularity, Grand Theft Auto 3 became the subject of controversy, much like its predecessors due to the violence. One of the main denigrators of this game was Jack Thompson, a Florida attorney and activist known for criticizing media that he felt promoted and glorified sex and violence. Thompson will become one of the game's most persistent denigrators and will use stories of mass shootings and crimes involving young people who claim to be inspired by the game to justify his beliefs. Another example of the game's controversy is when players will pick up sex workers to have sex with in order to increase their life points to 125. After sex was done, players will kill the sex worker to steal her money. This attracted the ire of feminist groups as well, believing that the game promoted violence against women. However, this is something the player can choose to do and not obliged to do so. After the release of GTA 3, DMA Design was rebranded as Rockstar North. The next installment that will be released the following year will become even more successful and popular. Grand Theft Auto Vice City was released on October 27, 2002 as a PlayStation 2 exclusive. Both Vice City and GTA 3 will be released in the following year on Xbox and PC. Grand Theft Auto Vice City served as a prequel to Grand Theft Auto 3 and set in a different city and era, 1980s Miami. This setting was inspired by media such as Miami Vice and Scarface. This game allowed players to not just drive cars, jeeps, trucks, and tanks, but it allowed players to ride motorcycles, pilot helicopters, and seaplanes as well. Upon its release, Vice City was a massive success for its new elements and the setting, as well as capturing the sun-washed avenues of Miami and also the clothing, styles, and slang words of the 1980s. While Claude was a silent protagonist, developers decided to give this game's protagonist a voice and a personality. The main protagonist, Tommy Vercetti, will be voiced by the late Ray Liotta of Goodfellas fame.
Wait, Sonny. You have my personal assurance that I'm going to get you your money back, and the drugs, and I'm going to mail you the dicks of those responsible. Hey.
The story is set in 1986. Tommy Vercetti was released from prison after completing a 15-year sentence. His old boss, Sonny Forelli, decided to send Tommy down to Vice City to supervise a drug deal. But then, the deal is an ambush, and two of Sonny's men are dead and Tommy escapes. Tommy would then begin a journey of taking over Vice City and become its biggest drug kingpin. Grand Theft Auto Vice City allows players to carry firearms, and new and powerful ones are introduced in this game. New melee weapons include a meat cleaver, screwdriver, hammer, knife, machete, golf club, brass knuckles, a katana sword, and even a chainsaw. The chainsaw is like a nod to the 1983 movie Scarface. Another nod to Scarface is where there is a motel where players can enter and see a bathroom with bloodstains on the walls, much like that scene in the movie. Much like its predecessors, players can go on missions or make some money by committing crimes, carjacking, and even using police cars, ambulances, taxis, and even pizza delivery bikes to make some money. Hidden packages can also give players some money, and the more they collect these packages, weapons are delivered to their safe houses. Stunt driving can also reward players with money. Another feature of this game is allowing players to change clothes as well. Players can also take over businesses, and once missions are completed for these businesses, they can obtain money from them. The music of the radio stations is comprised of songs from the 1980s performed by singers such as the late Michael Jackson, Kate Bush, Foreigner, Blondie, Tito Puente, the late Ozzy Osbourne, and so on. When it comes to movie references, the character of Ken Rosenberg bears a resemblance to David Kleinfeld from the movie Carlito's Way, who was played by Oscar winner Sean Penn. Both are crooked lawyers that are addicted to cocaine and work with the main characters. Ray Liotta was not the only big name in this game, as other names included William Fichtner, the late Tom Sizemore, Fairuza Balk, Deborah Harry, Robert Davi, Danny Trejo, Philip Michael Thomas, the late Dennis Hopper, and former adult film star Jenna Jameson. Much like its predecessor, Vice City was a successful video game. However, many detractors came out once again out of the woodwork to blame the game for society's ills. This time, the game was accused of promoting racism between Cubans and Haitians. In the game's first release, There were lines such as Humberto Robina and other Cuban gangsters espousing racism towards Haitians. Various Cuban American and Haitian American activists protested the game for such things. Not wanting any more problems with these activists, the game would later be updated by changing lines that espouse racism and prejudice. Jack Thompson will also denigrate the video game as well, but as usual, he will be debunked. Up to this day, many consider Vice City to be the best game in the saga of Grand Theft Auto 3, but its successor will be even more successful. Two years after Vice City, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas will be released on the PlayStation 2, PC, and Xbox. Upon its release, the game demolished expectations and will become the best game in the series according to many fans of the GTA series. This story, much like Vice City, will also serve as a prequel to Grand Theft Auto 3 in a different city and setting, 1990s Los Angeles, in a time of racial tension and violence. San Andreas will be a state rather than a city and would serve as a stand-in for California. This is the first game where players can travel through 3 different cities: Los Santos, a stand-in for Los Angeles; San Fierro, a stand-in for San Francisco; and Las Venturas, a stand-in for Las Vegas. The time and setting of San Andreas will capture the racial tensions growing at an all-time high due to racism and police brutality caused by the actions of Crash in the 1990s. The racial tensions in the early 1990s would increase due to the Rodney King incident, in which the verdict of the policeman that brutalized him would blow into a full-scale riot in the city of Los Angeles and sparking conversations about racial prejudice and tensions. Media that will also inspire the game are movies such as Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, Juice, and so on. In this game, the gang intelligence unit of the police is called Crash, based on the gang intelligence unit of the same name. The LAPD Crash were known for their brutality, falsified evidence, illegal shootings, unprovoked beatings, and racism. A new protagonist is introduced in this game, Carl Johnson, also known as CJ. The story begins with his return to Los Santos after 5 years in Liberty City. He receives the news that his mother, Beverly Johnson, was killed in a drive-by shooting. Upon returning home, he is framed for murder by police officers Frank Tenpenny and Eddie Pulaski, who had run-ins with Carl in the past. Once Carl rides a bike back to his house, he finds his friends and family in disarray. His older brother, Sean Sweet Johnson, accuses him of the murders of Brian and his mother and berates him for abandoning the Grove Street family's gang. To win his brother's trust, Carl begins to do jobs for his brother and his other friends, Ryder and Big Smoke. He becomes very protective of his sister Kendall, who is dating a member of the Mexican gang. Soon, Carl begins to work his way to the top and put his gang back to greatness. New features in this game are introduced, such as the ability to swim, something that was lacking in previous titles. Other features include ways to raise stamina and respect, such as working out, completing missions, gaining territories from rival gangs, representing the Grove Street colors, and also players can modify cars to make them faster by adding a nitrous oxide system. Another feature is CJ having girlfriends in different parts of the game. Once the relationship increases its maximum limit, the girlfriend gives Carl a special outfit. Much like its predecessors, the game would spark controversy once again, attracting the attention of Jack Thompson, Ralph Nader, and Glenn Beck, blaming the game for all of society's woes and violence among the youth. But this time, attention was focused primarily on the Hot Coffee mod, which unlocked a hidden explicit sex minigame. This discovery forced the ESRB re-rating to adults only, triggered recalls, prompted lawsuits, and caused a Federal Trade Commission investigation into undisclosed content. The mod was released by Patrick Wildenborg, a 38-year-old modder from the Netherlands. In terms of the Hot Coffee mod, this attracted the attention of once presidential hopeful Senator Hillary Clinton. Although the mod was on PC only, it was also allowed in consoles by changing the bit inside a user's save game file or by using a third-party modding device. In terms of voice acting in the game, rap stars and lesser known figures would take part in the voice work to make it less expensive. Other notable voice actors include Samuel L. Jackson, the late Chris Penn, Armando Riesco, Clifton Collins Jr., Bijou Phillips, Sonia Walder, etc. Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas will be remastered many years later and released as Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition. Now, after the success of San Andreas, 2 games would go on a PlayStation Portable. The arrival of the PlayStation Portable in 2005 took the world by storm, as it is the first PlayStation handheld. Many would consider the PSP a handheld PlayStation 2 and allowed players to play online and gained access to the PlayStation Store to purchase games and also rent or purchase their favorite movies and shows. There were many games that were launched with the PSP, and in mid to late 2005, a new Grand Theft Auto game was released on the PSP. Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. Liberty City Stories served yet as another prequel to Grand Theft Auto 3 taking place in 1998. The story is about Tony Cipriani, who returned home after living abroad for years after killing a made man. Once he returned home, he started working for Vincenzo Chili, an underling of Don Salvatore Leone. The game explores the Leone family's rise to power, their war against their rival families such as the Sindacos and the Forellis, and also explores the themes of political corruption and power struggle among criminal organizations. While many players were excited about returning to Liberty City, criticism was aimed towards the lack of swimming, lack of piloting helicopters, etc. Still, it is the best PSP game of all time. Now, the character of Tony Cipriani was first introduced in Grand Theft Auto 3, and is known to be heavily based on Tony Soprano, played by the late James Gandolfini in The Sopranos, which I would consider to be the best crime drama of all time. Had it not been for The Sopranos, we wouldn't have shows like Breaking Bad, Boardwalk Empire, Power, etc. Both Tony Cipriani and Tony Soprano are known to have complicated relationships with their mothers, who often embarrass them and even go so far as to order hits on them. The PSP version of Liberty City Stories also includes multiplayer mode through a wireless ad hoc network, which allows up to 6 players to engage in several different game modes. A year later, Liberty City Stories would have a PlayStation 2 port. Vice City Stories was released a year after Liberty City Stories. This game returns players back to Vice City in the 1980s, serving as a prequel to Vice City. In March 2007, a PlayStation 2 port was released. Set in 1984, the game focuses on the brother of Lance Vance, Victor, also known as Vic. Vic Vance is an ex-soldier who attempts to build a criminal empire alongside his brother Lance. With the initial intention of raising money for his sick brother Pete's medication, Vic comes into conflict with rival gangs, drug lords, and other enemies. The gameplay remains much the same as predecessors such as committing crimes, performing stunt drives, and completing side missions to make money. This game introduces a new element, which is a unique empire building system in which players must expand their criminal syndicate from the ground up by taking over businesses from rival organizations and completing missions specific for each of them to increase their income and unlock additional rewards. Like its predecessor, Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories, the PSP version of the game includes a multiplayer mode through a wireless ad hoc network, which allows up to 6 players to engage in several different game modes. Much like Liberty City Stories, Vice City Stories received generally favorable reviews. However, Both games are not the first titles to be handheld games. The first and second GTA games had Game Boy Color versions. Unfortunately, they were not so good. The Game Boy Advance had GTA Advance, which was also a prequel to GTA 3, yet a vast improvement over the previous titles for the Game Boy Color. In the holiday season of 2005, the Xbox 360 was released, and then, in 2006, PlayStation 3 was launched, and games were entering the world of HD, so it was time for the series to evolve into it. The GTA series was so successful that it inspired other game developers to create their own GTA-style type of games, such as Mafia by 2K Czech and Hangar 13, and Saints Row by the now defunct Volition. The Saints Row series started out successfully, but its latest entry, which served as a reboot of the series, was a total failure due to poor writing, storytelling, and gameplay. After the success of Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City, Rockstar would go on to create a game set in the same universe, Manhunt. Manhunt is known for its extreme violence, strong language, and disturbing scenes and imagery, yet it is also popular and as controversial as the Grand Theft Auto series. Rockstar will also create a new game series called the Red Dead series, which many will see as Grand Theft Auto in the Wild West. Much like GTA later on, the Red Dead series would have an online game called Red Dead Online. Another popular Rockstar game, Bully, which was also controversial as Grand Theft Auto.
Saying hello. Ow!
Nico, my cousin! I couldn't believe it, you're here! Welcome to America!
Bravo, Barazzaru!
What?
Good to see you, man.
Grand Theft Auto 4 was first announced at the now defunct E3 convention in 2006. A year later, the game was revealed at that convention and will return where it all began, Liberty City. Grand Theft Auto 4 was then released on April 29, 2008 on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and was released later on PC during the holiday season that same year. The game was developed by Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. Although the game takes players back to Liberty City, this game has no connection to the timeline and universe of Grand Theft Auto 3, nor the first two games in the series. It is also the very first game to feature online multiplayer mode, which allows up to 32 players to either compete or cooperate in a recreation of the single-player setting. This is also the first GTA game in the series to feature expansion packs since the first game. As you all know, the first GTA game expansions were titled London 1969 and London 1961 and served as prequels to the main game. The story expansions of Grand Theft Auto 4 served as new plots interconnected with the main game, The Lost and the Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony, which follow new protagonists. The development for this game began soon after the release of San Andreas and was shared between many of Rockstar Studios worldwide. The game also shifted to a more realistic and detailed style and tone for the series. Developers sought to create an original approach to the story rather than a strong cinematic influence unlike previous games. As part of their research for the open world, development team conducted extensive field research in New York, capturing over 100,000 photographs and several hours of video. The design of the city focuses on recreation of 4 of the boroughs of New York City: Broker, based on Brooklyn; Dukes, based on Queens; Bohan, based on the Bronx; and Algonquin, based on Manhattan. The setting of this game also includes the neighboring state of Alderney, a stand-in for the state of New Jersey. At the beginning of the story, bridges are locked down because of terrorist threats, and police will constantly pursue players if they attempt to cross these bridges. As players progress, the barricades are lifted, allowing them to traverse uninterrupted between the two islands. The story of the main game is set in Liberty City, following Eastern European war veteran Niko Bellic and his attempts to escape his past in pursuit of the American dream while under pressure from high-profile criminals. Niko meets and befriends various new characters throughout the story and works for various criminal organizations and fights against some of them as well, while searching for the one responsible for betraying him and his unit in the past. The gameplay remains much like its predecessors, where players can freely roam the game's open world throughout Liberty City. As they progress further in the game, they can cross from Liberty City to the state of Alderney. Players can go out to complete missions and complete optional side missions. Unlike previous entries, the world of Grand Theft Auto 4 is much larger. At the game's beginning, they can explore a limited area, Bohan, Broker, and Dukes, with all other islands unlocking as the story progresses. Players use melee attacks, firearms, and explosives to fight enemies, and may run, jump, swim, or use vehicles to navigate the game's world. Players can not just play on third person, but also use an optional first-person perspective when using vehicles or walking. In combat, auto-aim and a cover system can be used as assistance against enemies. Players can regenerate their health meter by consuming food, drinks, using medical kits, or calling paramedics. And of course, law enforcement officials will be on Nico's tail when committing crimes, with a wanted meter indicated in the head-up display. Players can evade the police by traveling outside the wanted vicinity area. After this, the wanted meter enters a cooldown mode. Law enforcement hunt for the player and eventually recedes when they are hidden from the officer's line of sight. The cover system allows players to move between obstacles, fire blindly, aim freely, and target a specific enemy. In melee combat, players can dodge, block, and disarm opponents and counterattack. Players have a morality system which can alter the storyline depending on the player's choice. Nico has a cell phone to contact friends and hang out with them through activities. Players can play in online multiplayer mode, playing in different game modes such as death matches and street races. To level up the ranks, in-game money has to be earned. The two story expansions of GTA 4 are The Ballad of Gay Tony and The Lost and the Damned. The Ballad of Gay Tony follows Luis Fernando Lopez, a Dominican-American former drug dealer who now works as a bodyguard and business partner to nightclub impresario Anthony Gay Tony Prince. The narrative centers on Luis's efforts to help Tony survive drug abuse, mountain debt, conflicts with mafia families, and repeated assassination attempts. The Ballad of Gay Tony received generally favorable reviews from critics, with particular praise for the depiction of its titular LGBTQ character. The Lost and the Damned is set in the state of Alderney, following the exploits of Johnny Klebitz, vice president of the Liberty City chapter of the Lost MC, a motorcycle club which, along with himself, featured in several missions in both games. The story of this expansion focuses on Johnny's efforts to keep the chapter running while dealing with gang warfare, drug running, internal conflict, and his drug-addicted and unfaithful girlfriend, Ashley Butler. Grand Theft Auto 4, upon release, received critical acclaim for its gameplay, story, design, open world, character development, and so on. Both expansions were equally praised as well, and it is considered to be one of the greatest games of all time. Much like its predecessors, Grand Theft Auto 4 was also the subject of controversy. Jack Thompson, known for his campaigns against the series, stated that he would take measures to prevent the sale of GTA 4 to minors. One of his condemnations of the game included the assassination target of a mission in the game being a lawyer character based upon himself.
Guns don't kill people, video games do.
Another denigrator of the game was conservative radio host Glenn Beck. Beck used the game as an example of violence in video games, training our kids to be killers, erroneously stating the player can attack cops with a chainsaw. Many countered Beck, stating that the game was not for children and violent wars occurred before video games existed. It is an undeniable fact that violence was rampant prior to the creation of video games. Make no mistake, humans have committed violence for centuries over race, lands, money, resources, and most especially, religion. It is an undeniable fact that people use religion to justify random acts of violence, terrorism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, and try to prove which religion was better, more peaceful, and more virtuous. The nonprofit organization Mothers Against Drunk Driving criticized the ability to drive drunk in the game. Matt requested that Rockstar and Take-Two to consider halting distribution out of a sense of social responsibility and respect for victims of driving under the influence. Rockstar said it respected Matt's work, but felt the game's audience is more sophisticated enough to understand the game's content, adding, "You can't judge Grand Theft Auto 4 by a small aspect of the game." Grand Theft Auto 4 continues to be a beloved title in the series, and many would wish there was a remastered version for the PS5. And they should do it. Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars is a 2009 game developed by Rockstar Leeds in conjunction with Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. This is the 7th GTA game to be handheld, as it was released for the Nintendo DS. The game serves as a follow-up to Grand Theft Auto 4. Chinatown Wars is set in the open-world environment and has a different presentation from previous titles, partially resembling the first Grand Theft Auto games. Instead of a ground-level view behind a protagonist, or a top-down perspective, Chinatown Wars uses a fully rotatable camera angled down at the action. This game also uses cel-shaded polygons with black outlines to produce a comic book-like aesthetic. The story of the game is set within Liberty City, following a young Triad member, Huang Li, and his efforts to recover a sword gifted by his late father after it is stolen from him, while inadvertently becoming caught in a power struggle among the Triads of Liberty City. When it comes to losing wanted stars, in Grand Theft Auto 4, players shake the cops by escaping the wanted level zone and wait until the heat dies down. In this game, players lose wanted level stars by destroying police cars to escape the cops instead of leaving a wanted zone. The game also allows players to go on the drug dealing subplot, which allows them to peddle heroin, acid, ecstasy, marijuana, cocaine, antidepressants around the city. In order to avoid getting caught by law enforcement while dealing drugs, players must destroy CCTV cameras by throwing Molotov cocktail bottles or grenades. Chinatown Wars continued the tradition of the series being controversial because of the drug-dealing minigame that included heroin and ecstasy. A denigrator of the game is Darren Gold, an anti-drug abuse activist who stated the following: "Anything using drug dealing as entertainment is sending out the wrong message. Glamorization doesn't help our work trying to educate kids of the dangers of substance abuse." In an interview with Edge Magazine, Dan Houser responded that they wanted to have a drug dealing minigame in many of the GTA games. Drug dealing is included in Vice City Stories because it worked really well juxtaposed with the main story. The drug dealing is intersected with the main story and mostly runs on its own. Reviews for Chinatown Wars were mostly positive and received the Best Handheld Game Award at the 2009 Spike Video Game Awards.
Welcome back, man!
Grand Theft Auto 5 is the 7th installment in the series that was first announced with a teaser in 2011. This game took players back to the city of Los Santos. The game started to develop around the release of GTA 4 in 2008, and its team totaled more than 1,000 people, including Rockstar North's core team and staff from its parent company studios around the world. Having developed 2 episodic expansion packs in Grand Theft Auto 4, developers wanted to base GTA 5's story around 3 simultaneously controlled protagonists: Michael DeSanta, Franklin Clinton, and Trevor Phillips. Grand Theft Auto 5 was first released on September 17, 2013 on the PlayStation and Xbox 360. In the following year, the game was released on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, in 2015 on PC, and on March 15, 2022, the game was released on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. Grand Theft Auto 5 is the most re-released game in the series up to this day. Set in the city of Los Santos within the fictional state of San Andreas, based on Southern California, the story of the game follows 3 protagonists: retired bank robber Michael DeSanta, street gangster Franklin Clinton, and drug dealer and gun runner Trevor Phillips, and their attempts to commit heists while under pressure from a corrupt government agency and powerful criminals. The gameplay remains much the same, with players roaming around the open world of Los Santos, completing missions, completing side missions, and traveling across not just Los Santos, but also the fictional Blaine County. They can roam on foot, vehicles, and even fly airplanes and helicopters. They can also play online multiplayer with up to 30 players and engage in a variety of cooperative and competitive game modes. Los Santos is much larger than earlier entries in the series and also has references to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and previous titles as well. A new feature in this game is that players can switch to any of the 3 characters that they play as: Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, criminals whose stories are interconnected as they complete missions. Some missions are completed with only 1 character, and other features 2 characters or 3. During missions, characters may automatically switch to complete specific objectives. A character's compass avatar will flash red if he is in danger and needs help, and flash white if he has a strategic advantage. Each of the characters have unique skills that represent their ability in specific areas, such as shooting and driving, which can improve through play. Michael enters bullet time in combat, Franklin slows down time while driving, and Trevor deals twice as much damage to enemies while taking half as much in combat. Players can also engage in context-specific activities such as scuba diving and base jumping, and visit businesses such as cinemas and strip clubs. Each character has a smartphone for contacting friends, starting activities, and accessing in-game internet. The internet lets players trade in stocks via a stock market. Players can purchase properties such as garages and businesses, upgrade weapons in each character's arsenal, upgrade vehicles, and customize their appearance by purchasing outfits, haircuts, and tattoos. Like in the previous game, players not only listen to the satirical commercials on the radio, but also watch television shows that satirize American society. TV shows such as Republican Space Rangers, Morehead Writes Again, and Kung Fu Rainbow Laser Force are a satirical take on ultra-conservatives on how they glorify violence yet condemn sex, and how homophobia can be rooted in being closeted. Impotent Rage, Fame or Shame, and many commercials on television are a satirical take on liberals and the aspiration to become celebrities. While receiving multiple awards and accolades, Grand Theft Auto V is also another controversial video game being blamed for random acts of violence involving young people. The game was accused of the Washington Navy Yard shooting, in which the perpetrator was Aaron Alexis. The game was also accused of animal abuse by animal rights activists due to allowing players to go hunting and even killing some animals too. Killing animals and hunting is up to the player's choice, though there is a side mission which is obligational to shoot animals. The mission by the book sparked a lot of controversy due to requiring players to use torture equipment in hostage interrogation. This torture sequence was criticized by politicians and anti-torture charity groups. Independent journalist Tom Chick defended the sequence and wrote that unlike Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's No Russian mission or the 2012 film Zero Dark 30, the underlying political commentary on torture in the mission by the book necessitated the violent content. This gameplay was cut out from the Japanese release version of the game. Several reviewers such as Carolyn Pettit found the game's portrayal of women misogynistic. Australian department stores banned the sale of GTA 5 due to Change.org petition against depictions of violence towards women in the game, amassing over 40,000 signatures. Many will lash out against Pettit and the ones who called for the game's ban in Australia, giving negative comments against them. Pettit and the others were accused of promoting censorship with their criticism. What's funny is that when it comes to entertainment, there are people representing certain activist movements decrying violence against a certain sex while ignoring the other getting hurt. In Grand Theft Auto, the majority of the targets to kill are men. There are times when women are targets, but most of the time, it's men who are targeted. Lindsay Lohan and Karen Gravano would also go after the game by filing lawsuits against Rockstar. In the case of Lindsay Lohan, she claimed that elements in the game, including the Lacey Jonas character, were influenced by her image, voice, and clothing line without permission. In the case of Karen Gravano, who is famously known for the reality show Mob Wives and being the daughter of a mobster turned informant, Salvatore Gravano, aka Sammy the Bull, filed a lawsuit against the company due to a side mission involving a character named Antonia Bottino. Antonia Bottino is said to be heavily based on Karen Gravano, as both are daughters of big-time mobsters that turn informants and are writing a book about it. In 2016, both lawsuits were dismissed. Grand Theft Auto Online had various expansions that received critical acclaim and praise for gameplay, graphics, and story. Many will compare Grand Theft Auto V's re-releases to Skyrim, which is another game constantly re-releasing.
What you doing up there?
Grand Theft Auto 6 was announced in 2022, with a teaser trailer released in the holiday season of 2023. Players will go once again to Vice City, located in the fictional state of Leonida, which serves as a stand-in for Florida. The story of the game follows a criminal couple, Jason Duval, who worked for local drug runners in the Leonida Keys after serving in the army, and Lucia Caminos, the series' first non-optional female protagonist who was imprisoned at Leonida Penitentiary after fighting for her family from Liberty City. Following a failed bank robbery, the duo encounter a statewide conspiracy and are forced to protect each other. Preliminary work for the game's development began in 2014, with early development starting in 2018 following the release of Red Dead Redemption 2. The game was reported to be a moderately sized release that would expand over time to avoid its predecessor's developer crunch, and that it would feature 2 Bonnie and Clyde inspired protagonists, including a Latina, and a significant online mode akin to Grand Theft Auto Online. In the years before its announcement, the game was highly anticipated, but fans were frustrated by Rockstar's continued silence, particularly after they announced a re-release of Grand Theft Auto V in 2020. The series is never a stranger to controversy, but this time, there are detractors coming out of the woodwork lashing out about a Latina protagonist. The people who lash out against the game call themselves anti-woke, the very same people who often say that young people and leftists are too easily offended.
Do you know why you're here?
One of the known denigrators of this game is billionaire Elon Musk. He boycotted the game due to the player's choice to kill police officers. His hypocrisy for that statement is well known since he plays shooter games like Overwatch. Another one decrying the game was Ian Miles Chong, who stated the same thing as Elon Musk, yet praised Cyberpunk 2077 for the shooting of cops being optional, which is also hypocrisy and virtue signaling on his part. The third one who decried the game was Jackson Hinkle, a far-right political commentator. Hinkle boycotted the game due to half-naked women walking on the beach, and also because you see a woman twerking at the top of a car. The less said about that far-right man, the better. People like Elon Musk, Ian Miles Chong, Jackson Hinkle, The Critical Drinker, Andy Pants Gaming, and Renting for Vengeance, may I mention once again, they are the same type of people who say that young people and leftists are too easily offended. They cry how the game is woke because of a Latina protagonist and the inclusion of LGBTQ characters, which says much about their racism and bigotry. As someone who defends the LGBTQ and as a remorseful ex-homophobe, Grand Theft Auto always had LGBTQ characters. If the existence of LGBTQ characters is bothersome to you, then don't play. LGBTQ has existed since the dawn of mankind, whether you like it or not, and a lot of LGBTQ people are responsible for developing your games and help develop your games as well. The games that you like, of course. Some people are concerned that the game's violence will be toned down as well as a crass humor because of the vocal minority known as the social justice warriors, or woke skulls as they are known. Now, it's very understandable that the game series' crass humor and violence will be toned down because of a vocal minority crying problematic all the time. It's bad enough that ultra-conservatives want to ban something because they think it's satanic and glorifies sex and violence, to a point where the woke skulls try to make everything politically correct. The Grand Theft Auto series continues to be as popular and as controversial as well. What makes GTA unique is giving players a sense of freedom to do as they please and be more the villain than heroes. The series is also well known for its reputation of satirizing and lampooning American society. Time after time, politicians, lawmakers, religious groups, and activists sought to ban the game from being sold, yet they failed as they were debunked and corrected. This concludes the controversial history of Grand Theft Auto. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Patreon, and share with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time. This is China Video Games in the World, signing off.